Okay, welcome to String Theory with Anthony Douglas. I am your host, Anthony Douglas. And at any rate, we are still working on our Fender 4-neck String Master and sizing it up, really seeing what we need to get going. I'm going to start in taking this plate off. The plates look really good. They really truly do. They look very, very good with all that chrome and everything. But in all due practicality, I don't really see that it's beneficial. In other words, let me turn this back on and I'll show you. I can do like string muting from here. Just with my skin, you know? But I can't really do that up here on with one of these covers on. So in all due practicality, I'm thinking now that I'm going to just take these covers off, and as I am using the guitar, just leave them off. Just because I don't see, unless I'm thoroughly mistaken here, any benefit to having these covers on the guitar. They look good, and so I will put these in plastic bags, and the the screws, you know, make sure that everything is nice and tidy. But me playing this thing out and just playing it all the time, I see no benefit into having these things, you know, unless somebody calls me up and says, what were you thinking? You could do this and this and this with it. But Fender, even on their Telecasters, they had these covers and they looked really good. I mean, they really had a nice beautiful look to them, and there are players that played with them and did well, but again, with those covers, I find it really hard to do string muting on a regular electric guitar. And string muting is going to also be part of a steel guitar. It's going to be a big part of what I do here, so this is not going to benefit things. Now let's take a look here at the strings we're having, and get a cup of taste of my coffee here. I will, this is a 12 gauge. Okay, so I will put so there needs to be something on these boards. Huh. We won't worry about that. These boards are in good condition. Marker boards. Okay, so we were talking about Hank Williams and his Drifting Cowboy Band and some of the things, you know, that they're going through. And I think I left it off with the tour schedule. It said, when I asked the Google Maps girl about it, and you know how the Google Maps girl can be, but She said that it was a grueling tour, the 1952 tour of Hank Williams. Now, as I began to ask questions about it, I began to ask about the Ray Price, because he was living with Ray Price in 52. They had a house together that, I don't know which one of them, the living arrangement, or whether one or the other was up on the upstairs. I forget. I did hear Ray Price a long time ago tell this story. And all I can say is Hank Williams also toured with Ray Price. So he was touring with him around the country, apparently. Unless I am wrong about this, because you know how that Google Maps girl can be at times. But it said that when Hank wasn't able to fulfill an obligation, if I have this right, hopefully I have it right, but if he was not able to fulfill one of the obligations, that they would do a Ray Price would take over. So he would then help fill in for Hank Williams if Hank could not make a date or something. So apparently I asked, was Ray Price touring with him? And the Google Maps girl said he was. I'm going to have to research this a little bit more just to, really figure that out. It said that they shared the house for a short time. Hank Williams let Ray Price use his band, and they were going into the studio and recording with Ray Price. Now, I don't know how much of that they were doing when Hank was alive. In 1953, I'm pretty sure they were doing quite a bit of that. They may have been already doing it by 52. Hank and Ray Price were really good friends. So that's interesting. I did hear a documentary that Ray Price was on, and he looked incredibly sad when he talks about him leaving his house. He had Billie Jean with him, and he goes, and I never saw him again. Something to the note of that, and looked incredibly devastated. My heart really goes out to these people, like Waylon Jennings with Buddy Holly, and, just looking at the horror really on their faces, here their best friends are, that they think is going to be with them for a long, long time, and now they're no longer with them. And you could definitely tell it affected, Ray Price long into his life. And then when I asked what happened to the Drifting Cowboy Band after he had taken it over, after Ray Price had taken it over after Hank's death in 53, basically what they said about that one was that they went for about a year, possibly recording and playing some dates and doing some things, but Ray Price wanted to develop his own style, his own sound, his own thing. So he started his own band. And then you start really wondering about the Drifting Cowboy Band at that point. Where they found work, where they went on from there. Obviously, they're famous. They're superstars. They played with Hank Williams, and they were major parts of his band. And when you think of today, I mean, today, if somebody loses a fiddle player, a steel guitar player, nobody knows it. They all think about the upfront singer person or whatever, but they're not a big part or a personality. But, you know, years ago, if you think about the Doors and that keyboard player, well, everybody knows it's, you know, Ray Manzarek. You know, everybody knows that he was an intricate part of that band, the Doors, and it was his band. And, you know, Bobby Krieger on the guitar. People know the names of the artists. So it wasn't just in Hank Williams' band that this was happening or happened. They really valued the pickers, you know, in those days. Honestly, they really did. And which was, you know, which is cool. And I'm not saying that we're not going to do that again today, that there isn't going to be some of that that's going to go on, or that's maybe already going on. You know, it's very important to share that limelight with your pickers. It just is. Ernest Tubb was king of it. Hank Williams was very good at it. And let Jerry Rivers play a lot of fiddle tunes. You could definitely tell that. And I'm sure Don Helms had his share of instrumentals on the steel guitar that he was doing, which is cool. And but getting back to this thing where Hank is touring, Ray Price is touring with Hank Williams. So now the question is, I guess that I have now is that I'm going to try to find out is, how many of these concerts was Hank missing that Ray Price was standing in for him on? I mean, was it every once in a while? Was it a lot? Was he a part of the band and Ray would just feature him, or Hank would just feature Ray Price out on songs, and if Hank could make it, wonderful. If he couldn't make it, they still had Ray. You know, now these are just things I picked up on the internet. You know, and so I'm going to research these things a little more just to make absolute sure that what we're discussing here is correct. But if it is correct, that is interesting. That Hank kind of, you know, covered his bases. He knew he was sick. He knew he was a superstar. He valued Ray Price. And they were very, very close friends, obviously. And so this was, you know, it's starting to make more sense to me, you know, and with that grueling road tour schedule that the Google girl said he had, and I mean, I've been kind of trying to research, trying to find where these, especially the 1952 gigs, the tour schedule, which I think is important, which I'm going to really study, and I'll have it for you. I'll have, you know, there were Texas, some dates in Texas in 52 that he had. There were some ones that were not only Texas, but there was some in, where in the heck? Yeah, Louisiana, down around there. And different other parts of the United States. So it said it was crazy, the road tour and the tour schedule, which that's interesting. that just, I'd like to know more about that so that I can really wrap my head around this thing, about how they're touring. And you know, I mean, I've got this Route 66 hat on, I've got this Route 66 shirt on, so you know, we're into older roads and different things like that. That's what I'm into. So as we're reviewing this thing and taking a look at it, I mean, you go down Route 66, you take a look at it. Gas stations closed a lot. There were not a lot of places open all night long, and these are people that are touring 24 hours a day. They're not stopping. They've got all these dates. They're driving through the night. They're driving through snow. They're driving, you know, it's a good thing they had a Cadillac. That's all I can say. I had a 59 Cadillac, four-door flat top. It was a cream colored car. I'll show you pictures of it sometime, but it was a beautiful car in very good condition. And if his Cadillac, which was a 52 Cadillac, I believe that was a 52 model. If his Cadillac rode anything like my Cadillac, I mean, they rode nice. You really couldn't feel the bumps in them. They just floated along. So if his car rode anything like mine, he had a nice ride going, that's for sure. And at that time, it was all brand new. I'm trying to remember what the heater in my Cadillac was like. It seemed like it was a really good heater. Like it heated the car up really well every time I needed it. Washington State is really cold, so as I was riding around, I never felt cold in the car. So they had good heat. And I mean, I heard hearsay stories of this thing too. You know, don't quote me on this. But I did hear at one point he had gone to a restaurant, I think. And I don't know which year this was. But they had gone to this restaurant, and apparently Hank took a gun out. You know, at least I think it was a gun. Who knows what he did? Maybe threw a rock through the window for all I know. But let's just say it was a gun. That's what I remember hearing. And he shatters the glass door of this place and tells the people, to some note of the whole thing, that him and his band need food, and they'll you know, pay for the glass. They'll pay for everything. Just please feed my guys and I'll make it right with you. Think about that for just a minute now. These places are not open. You're driving, you're hungry. There's no shops around, and you have to make do and try to do something. And I think that, you know, that was an interesting way to handle it, and then just be totally nice and say, hey, we're going to make this thing worth your time. I mean, I wouldn't do something like that. I wouldn't have the guts to do something like that. But he did, apparently. And it worked out. It could have worked out really bad for him, but it worked out. And he took care of the people and was good to them. You know, I can see Hank Williams probably even, you know, maybe even singing and playing for him a little bit. You know, just kind of doing his thing, and they go, wow, that was Hank Williams. Can you believe it was him that was here? And his whole band got to eat, and if I'm remembering the story right, they did eat everything, and then they got back on the road. But going through these huge extremes to try to survive on the road, I can remember a time when I was on a road tour. I was with a girl group, actually. And they come in at all hours, really. But they come in the freaking middle of the night. I think it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. We had gone, they says, okay, go to your room and get some sleep after the gig. So I go to the room, I get some sleep. And then they come in like drill sergeants. Get up, get up, get up, get your stuff, get out of here. You know, we got a show to do in Vegas, and we're in Louisiana, and we have to get out of here now. And we had just gotten the show. So it was important that I get all my stuff and clear out of my motel or hotel quick. And that's exactly what I did. I got all my stuff together and got in the RV, and we began riding. And honestly, I did not sleep. I just got to be honest. That whole entire road tour, I did not sleep. It was just ridiculous. You know, that's the way it was. In fact, I don't remember anybody sleeping. I remember all of us very starved for sleep. We really needed to go to bed and stay there for a long time, but that wasn't what it permitted. You know, it just didn't permit anything like that. And we had a tour schedule, and we had to maintain that tour schedule. We had to do what our agency wanted us to do. So that was paramount. At any rate, so I can remember saying before I left the hotel that day before we got on the road, I talked to one of the maids. She was a really nice maid, and I had talked her into doing my laundry. And she says, well, we don't have laundry at this hotel. And I can remember saying $50, which was a lot of money at the time. I said, $50 to do my laundry. I will pay you 50. I said, I just need my laundry done. And she was very sweet, and she says, yes, sweetheart, we'll do your laundry. And when I came back, that laundry, it was pressed, it was neat, everything was in my suitcase, great. And I can remember getting into the RV that night, or that early that morning, at 2 in the morning, and going on the road, and one of the girls looks in my my suitcase, and she goes, hey, wait a minute. There were no laundromats back there. I said, yeah, there was. She goes, no, there wasn't. So we ride for a long time, and I'm itchy. I haven't had a bath in a while. I just haven't. I was tired. I got back to the motel unbathed and just jumped in my bed. And I was itchy. And, you know, from all the performing and the sweat and, you know, everything like that. We were at a gas station, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to do what I have to do to survive out here. And that's where I'm going with this, with the Hank Williams having to do what he did to survive. This is how I did it. So I went in and into the gas station bathroom, locked the door, and I had some sort of I don't know, like a pail or like a bucket or something, filled it up with water, and just poured it all over myself, you know. Took off all my clothes, poured this all over it, and sudsed up with soap. I had a bar of soap, and I sudsed it up, all the soap sudsed it all up, which worked out great for me. And hair, everything. Washed all my private body parts, and just like taking a bath. And then rinsed. So I would fill this bucket and just pour it all over the floor, and just, basically have to sit in the bucket and wash the private parts and rinse them and rinse everything, just. And then I dried off. I had a towel, and once I dried off, I put all new clothes on. And I had Old Spice, and I put that on my hair, and my clothes were nice and clean. And I jumped back just like I had a shower in the RV. And that same girl comes up to me, hey, because she was really unbathed. She goes, hey, there were no baths back there. I said, yeah, there were. But you do what you have to do to survive out there. A lot of, pickers and people, once they get out there, they want to stay out there because that's where the money is, and you don't want to punk out. You want to be able to be out there. And it's really, really easy to take a narcotic to be able to go to sleep and to wake up and be refreshed for the gig. When you're not sleeping, when you've got major insomnia going on out there, that got a lot of us. I just have to say that when you're on a schedule, you have to, make these things happen. You do not want to punk out. If you punk out and you get fired, then guess what happens? You're back looking for work again, and it could be a long time before you ever find another opportunity like that. So you're guarding that opportunity with your life. How I did it, how I survived, I started taking the plane, where the band wouldn't, and I just started spending lots of money out there. It's better to spend a lot of money, keep your job, and be refreshed for all the gigs, and do your thing. I don't care if you're not making that much money. You don't have a drug habit. Listen to me, I know what I'm talking about. For those of you who are considering a narcotic because you are tired, honestly, please take the plane. That's what they're there for. I know it's you think, well, it's going to cost me a lot of money, and I'm not going to be able to, on, and we don't make that much to begin with, and I might as well just quit. And no, don't quit, but take the plane. Honestly, there will be other opportunities for you if you remain in a situation like that. If you just stay there, there will be other opportunities, and other things that, maybe you'll get hurt, or maybe something will happen that's very positive. So don't screw up your situations, and guard them. And if it means spending all your money to do it, then do it. And ask very nicely for a raise if you need one. It's almost impossible to get a raise. I know. Very hard to get a raise in this business. That's why because we just don't have strong unions anymore, that I know of. That's always a good thing to do, is to make sure that you are taking that plane, that you are learning your material, that you're rehearsing everything, and that you become somebody that they cannot live without. They have to have you. You are reliable. If you are gigging around town, make sure you have a good car. Go buy a new car. I do. I don't care. I don't care if I have to sacrifice my entire house for the car. That's not a big deal to me. A big deal to me is letting people down. That's a big deal. And you're in a business that does not permit you to do that. It does not permit you to let people down. It does not give you sick leave. It doesn't do anything for you that way. So you have got to secure your gigs. So that's very important to do. And getting back to the Hank Williams thing, I mean, that's what they were doing. They were trying. You can obviously see Hank Williams was giving it his best shot. He was trying to, once he in '52 got fired from the Grand Ole Opry, he was trying his best to get back there and to, it was a temporary thing from what I understand. They were going to reinstate him, but they could not have him sick there like that. So he had to go back out there and maybe kind of prove himself, and he was well on his way to doing that. Here he is trying to take planes to get to the gig, and that's not working. I think Knoxville, that hotel he was staying in Knoxville, just to get to the gig that he was going to, southern, I don't know if it's West Virginia or where he was going, but there was an amphitheater that he was supposed to play that he never showed up to because he was dead. And it was on a whim, I heard. It was, they had made decisions quickly to get on the road and do all this stuff. And sometimes when you make quick decisions, it looks good on paper. But think about it. What's more important, Hank Williams getting reinstated at the Grand Ole Opry, or Hank Williams getting his life together and being healthy and not having a drinking problem or trying to minimize the back pain? And that's the big one right there. If you already have problems with alcohol and now you got pain like that, that just won't go away, that's a tough one. If you just have a drug problem, that's a tough one too, but at least you can go to Mary Bridge or something. But he certainly had some back issues going on and made that choice. He was like, he knew that he was pushing it. I mean, Elvis knew he was pushing it. Hank Williams knew he was. But these people know they're pushing it. The people around him know that they're pushing it. But rather than to get out of the public eye and take some time away from it and risk your career, risk gigs being canceled, risk everything, you will risk your health. And unfortunately, it's killed a lot of us that way. And but I just got to say to you people that are, on grueling road tours, be sensible, please. If there are chemical problems, health problems, if you're just not sleeping out there, if you can't get to sleep, if they're not giving you good hotels, get your own hotels. If they're not giving you any airplanes, if you're not taking the jet, take the jet. Just do whatever. If you value this gig and you want to save it, then you've got to do whatever you can to save it. And your family has to be supportive of that too. So we've got the E9th tuning on the steel guitar up here now. We've got to start on a mix of C6 and something else that I'm going to put here that I don't really know. I'm going to, like I said, try to do a funk thing here that is amazing. And I'm going to, you know, like I do on my pedal steels, and I'm going to do my E9th, I got my C6, I got my funk. And up here, I'm considering a 7th chord. So we can either do, I don't know, make some boomers here with some minors maybe happening here, and a 7th up here. And that would give me minors, that would give me 7ths, that would give me some booming funk, that would give me the C6 tuning. All right. And as always, if you like what you see, hit like and subscribe, and we'll be back working on the Fender Stringmaster 4-necker. Will be 1953. We'll be back working on this bad boy some more and talking about early 50s Hank Williams and romanticizing a little bit, and, you know, time traveling. I call it time traveling, really. But I'll see you in the next video.